Welcome back to the Tech Talks Daily podcast, where we delve into the exciting world of technology and its impact on our lives. Of course, I'm your host, Neil C. Hughes, and today I've got an incredible guest joining us. Her name is Hania Othman, and she's the Director of Sustainable Impact for Europe and Africa at the HBAR Foundation. Now, the HBAR Foundation is at the forefront of driving adoption of the Hedera network. And Hania's work is an integral part of that very mission. She's got an illustrious career spanning across tech and sustainability. She's been instrumental in designing and building solutions for the next-gen economy. And as the former head of impact at SmartBee and co-founder of TrustFactors, she's also demonstrated time and time again her unwavering commitment to leveraging technology for sustainable and inclusive change. But in today's discussion, Hania is going to shed some light on the pressing need for enhanced security, transparency and efficiency across our entire digital infrastructure. And she's also going to talk about how inclusivity and sustainability are inseparable pillars for mobilising positive change. So buckle up and hold on tight, because today I'm going to be beaming your ears all the way to Lisbon, where Hania is going to take a deep dive into the work of the HBAR Foundation, discuss the future of Web3 and the exciting potential of blockchain technology for a more sustainable world. But enough from me. Let's get Hania on now. So a massive warm welcome to the show. Can you tell everyone listening a little about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, sure. So thank you so much for having me, Neil. It's great to be here. So my name is Hania Othman. I am the Director of Sustainable Impact at the HBAR Foundation. I would describe myself as a bridge builder that works at the intersection of technology, sustainability, and finance. And in my current role at the HBAR Foundation, I oversee Europe and Africa. So I'm a sustainability technology optimist, and that's exactly what we do at the HBAR Foundation. Invest in technology in order to enable optimal solutions.
And it's such a big topic at the moment. And there will be people listening that are hearing about the HBAR Foundation for the very first time. So can you just share some background about the HBAR Foundation, its main goals, particularly as it relates to advancing security, transparency, efficiency, and sustainability across the Web3 sector? Because it feels like you're spinning a lot of plates there.
Yes, we are, definitely. So the HBAR Foundation is the grant-giving arm, the grant-giving organization within the Hedera ecosystem. So the Hedera ecosystem is quite broad, and HBAR Foundation is committed to growing the economy across Hedera in 4 key areas. So the 4 key areas are the crypto economy, consumer engagement or the metaverse, fintech, and then my area of focus, which is the sustainability economy within the HBAR Foundation, the Sustainable Impact Fund. So within this area, our focus is to bring the balance sheet of the planet to the public ledger. We leverage Hedera through open source infrastructure and enable applications that are auditable, information discoverable, and liquid where trading is appropriate in that exact order. And these principles span across 5 key goals. Those are the key goals in which we make our grant and investment decisions based upon, which is making climate finance auditable, digitizing and open sourcing methodologies, scaling validation and verification, discovering a global climate asset price and in general an environmental asset price, because all these new assets are coming up, and making ESG reporting credible. So our main focus within the Sustainable Impact Fund at the HBAR Foundation is to leverage Web3 and hash graph capabilities to solve global problems, specifically around climate, nature, and the sustainability crisis. So it's really focused on leveraging where Hedera excels. So talking about security, performance, and enterprise governance. And we leverage the transparency of Hedera to enable a planet balance sheet, having full oversight on that. A beautiful example of this is EverCity. So EverCity is one of our grantees. It's a UN-partnered climate finance application. And what they do is they digitize carbon forwards that are redeemable as IOUs for carbon credits as a financial, sustainable finance instrument. So from this asset, we can map out who the market participants are, who leverage the proceeds of these forwards, and we can better understand the ties to those producing data in the carbon markets. So in our integrated approach across our ecosystem, we can tie these assets together and with financial traceability into our open source Guardian ecosystem. So the Guardian ecosystem is a tool which we have invested in, which provides digitized workflows for climate measurements, reporting, verification of data across a variety of environmental projects in the carbon markets. And this link between finance and climate data provides the efficiency and climate outcomes that were previously never possible without having a really good governed Web3 approach. And this is exactly what our fund, the Sustainable Impact Fund, and our ecosystem is all about and what we're investing in order to further sustainability.
Wow, so much going on there. And I'd love to dig a little bit deeper on a lot of what you just mentioned. But before we do, I just want to dig into your history a little bit here as well, because before you came on the podcast, I was doing a little research, and you're someone with an extensive career in the next gen economy. And I also read that you've helped spearhead the growth of several Web3 projects already. Again, for anyone new to what you do here, can you share some of the most noteworthy experience in this space and how it's informed your work with HBAR Foundation too?
Yeah, so thank you so much for this question, Neil. I have been lucky enough to work with and I work across and meet amazing people across my career and be able to think about and develop actually projects for the next gen economy. And there are many projects. I mean, there are many projects that we have done that were very early stage. There were many projects that had the right format and that are currently still in development, such as Rebalance Earth, for example, pioneer within biodiversity credit markets. But I believe that the most noteworthy experience, one of the most noteworthy experiences, they all had one thing in common, all of these projects, in order to succeed, which is finding ways to work together. I found often that projects that identify their strengths and hone into that and find partners in areas or connect themselves to ecosystems that can create win-win situations for them is a winning, let's say, solution. You can have the greatest ideas, and there are many of those, and also execute fairly well. But if your project is, for example, based on an island and you're not really connected to other pieces, especially the pieces that you need when you're building and you're working on a next-gen economy solution, which is an infrastructure, it becomes very hard to focus on what you do best because you get distracted on what's necessary in the front and back. And which also, this directly leads me actually to our work at the HBAR Foundation and with the Hedera economy. So we consider ourselves like a VC venture builder, and it works in providing grants, and we have focused on enabling digital public goods that are necessary. So to build this next-gen sustainability integrated economy. And with it comes an ecosystem and the infrastructure that is needed to move from point A to point B. And that's exactly what we're all about, supporting builders that provide these digital public goods. And having a background in, let's say, from the enterprise side, where I was really doing the research development in terms of what was necessary for regulatory frameworks, but also on the startup side in terms of building these kind of solutions for sustainability, having access to these digital public goods and then being there is extremely important for success.
And I think the rise of Gen I and the impact on the world in just a matter of months is highlighting how the breakneck pace of technological change is moving. And it also gets the XIT guy in me thinking about, hey, what problems are we solving and what future implications are we unwittingly creating here? So from your perspective, why do you think there is a need for greater security, transparency and efficiency greater than ever before in this digital world? And how does the Hedera network, how does that address these needs, would you say?
So as you mentioned, fairly mentioned before, there are so many more applications and usages of technology and escape in rapid ways. As such, the amount of financial transactions are increasing. And DLT is used by much larger organizations, and they're handling and transacting a much bigger piece of the economic activity. And this calls for a greater need for security, logically, because at the moment we have smaller amounts, and the moment that there's going to be these large amounts that are the underpinning of, let's say, global economies, it's going to be much more vulnerable to attacks and targets becoming a larger target. So use cases on Hedera are leveraged by some of the largest organizations in the world in their industries, including financial transactions such as stablecoins, talking about institutional markets, pharmaceutical and healthcare tracking use cases. And all of these use cases require the highest form of security. So by using Hedera, many enterprises, including those on our governing council, inherit the highest form of security in distributed ledgers, asynchronous Byzantine fault tolerance, ABFT, meaning that they can trust the network is at its mathematical limit of security. They're not facing any concerns other networks have about malicious actors or interruptions in consensus. Of course, security goes beyond the consensus level, and Hedera has platform level audit it makes available. And the hashgraph consensus algorithm has been formally verified via COQ proof. So public ledgers like Hedera, they enable trust beyond security. They enable digital transparency that previously were not possible at platform level through the governance. Hedera publishes its meeting minutes and has an open source code base. And this enables the platform builders to be confident in the digital tools they create on Hedera and the way that they can interact with each other in a shared world. Also noteworthy is that although we use significantly less energy per transaction than any other public DLT, and it has been verified actually by UCL, so the University College London, in a study released earlier this year, comparing public blockchains and DLTs, which is very interesting.
And as an ex-IT change manager, I'm also intrigued by the level of change that we're seeing right now. And not just technological change, but also mindset and ways of working. There's so many big changes right across the board in businesses and in our personal lives. And two big themes, especially this year, are inclusivity and sustainability. They seem to be two pillars that you also strongly believe in for mobilizing positive change in the industry too. So can you elaborate on the role of those concepts in the Web3 sector and how you're seeing them being implemented in some of the projects that you're driving right now?
Yes. So inclusivity and sustainability are extremely important functions to mobilize positive change, as you mentioned, but also to reach the sustainable development goals, which have become global goals that consumers engage with, everybody engages with. But beyond that, we have the Paris agreements. We are well aware of the climate crisis, and we are well aware of equality issues, let's say. Moreover, there's the Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework, which all focus around inclusivity and sustainability as pillars. So within the Hedera ecosystem, we have invested and provided grants for The Guardian, which is built by Envision Blockchain. Envision has been working with Hedera and the foundation going back to 2021. So they started actually this project with my colleagues from the CIF, and they started really looking at mapping the requirements around sustainability. So before they started building anything, they looked at what is necessary in order to find solutions. And they identified problems, key problems, which is the fragmentation of data in these environmental markets. There was a fragmentation in terms of distribution, but it also expanded into what I meant with the financial transparency and evaluation of these assets. And this is for the most part in environmental assets starts with a methodology. So you always have a methodology or a rule set which you follow. And what the Guardian allows you to do is map out this workflow and map out all of the different parties that are involved in this. Of course, this can be mapped to their accounts, which enables not just data traceability coming from these accounts, but also the ability to understand the relationship and the financial relationship have in this workflow. So what they're benefiting, how is this inclusive, how is this sustainable for a longer term? So in projects globally across different jurisdictions, ranging from the global north to the global south, this is very important, as drawing the line between stakeholders and finance allows us to clearly understand inclusivity in the market. And it's a critical part of our investment thesis at the HBAR Foundation on making climate finance auditable. So really understanding the relationship between market participants and whether we're enabling funding to stay within the regions we're working in via the market participants is a key element of our strategy. And inclusion starts, of course, with transparency, full transparency of funds, of data, of governance design of projects within our ecosystem. And I can give you a very interesting example, which is actually our first grant team within the Sustainable Impact Fund, which is called DOVU. And DOVU is a Guardian-based application. So they have published over 10 open source methodologies around soil carbon. And this has enabled some of the smallest projects on the carbon market. We're talking about 3-hectare farms with initial locations across Bulgaria and the UK. But the reason we are so excited is not just the sustainability principles which are upheld, but the fact that to prove a point that the carbon market projects could also scale down to acres, really smaller projects benefiting the local farmers, rather than only supporting large-scale projects, which has often happened in the last years. In addition, of course, many of our users are enterprises. So, for example, our governing council member ServiceNow, who's one of the many enterprise Guardian users, they're using our open source digital public good to enable balance sheets and bring digital environmental assets like renewable energy credits on Hedera. These assets, of course, need to be traded. And a key portion of inclusion is really enabling finance of these traded assets to go back to the community. And that's one key focus to enable inclusivity, which you see all around. It is a global goal because we understand that that's the key to long-term sustainability. And having a clear visibility on the percentage of the credit value staying within the community and really trickling back into the local economy is a key objective of multilateral organizations and agreements, but also a key objective in achieving this long-term sustainability. And it's very much aligned in solving key issues like poverty reduction. So, for example, projects like Totem Earth is a marketplace and it really drives liquidity in digital environmental assets. And it strives to enable, they bring issued credits together with on-chain settlement and trading, and they bring together and enable actually buyers to have insight into the value of these credits and how it's being distributed, and also to connect the sellers directly to the buyers who have potentially extra co-benefits, meaning co-benefits that they are women-led projects, that they are benefiting local communities much more, that they have biodiversity aspects. So there are some very exciting things that are happening that support this long-term sustainability and inclusivity, and technology is definitely a lever for that.
Wow, incredible. And I always say in every single episode of this podcast, technology works best when it brings people together. And I love what you're doing here. And as the Director of Sustainable Impact for both Europe and Africa at the HBAR Foundation, I'm curious, what kind of unique challenges and equally opportunities are you encountering while driving sustainable practices in these regions? Because we all hear about the hype and the different, there's a lot of greenwashing going on out there at the moment. So I'd love to hear some real world examples of those challenges and opportunities that you're seeing when driving this.
Yeah. So I think I'm extremely lucky to be in this position and having to work across, let's say, Europe, Africa, and also parts of the Middle East. Every region has different priorities and there are different levels of development and focus. Europe, for example, is a front runner regarding sustainability and disclosure regulation, really hammering down onto the greenwashing. The Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive came out, and it really forces actually organizations to report on what they actually did in terms of sustainability achievement, and not just mention it by having proxy level data, direct data, and having access towards it. And there's a lot of lessons to be taken there in terms of policy. But what's also interesting is that often when we look at solutions designed by Europeans for Europeans, they can't always be copied and pasted to other regions. There is a lot of lessons to be learned, and we take the design from there. But I believe the exciting opportunity within sustainability in Africa is having locally adapted solutions built by Africans for Africans. And within sustainability, this is extremely important to really ensure that trickle back effect of knowledge, of capacity building, economic value creation on the continent. And that is for the long-term sustainability, and also have the technical capacity in order to build further and innovate on their own terms. And the unique opportunity is that Africa has obviously the highest growing population, but while Africa has the opportunity and appetite for the adoption of emerging technology, especially as there are fewer legacy systems to build around. Africa is a large continent with vast resources on human capital and natural capital. They can all be enabled to enable a greater economic growth that is not extractive as a key word. So I believe that the greatest opportunity, but also the risk, lies in growth. Growth can prioritize short-term benefit, following the exact same principles that have benefited the global north, or can create longer-term benefit by pioneering in solutions that look at resource management and growth in a more regenerative way, and where benefit sharing really trickles back to the communities, allowing them to be greater participants of the global economy as the guardian of the environment. And my role is really looking at and talking to people building these solutions, whether they're enterprises or startups that can really pivot the sustainability economy based in Africa, owned by Africa. I'm so excited to talk to change makers that have solutions for example, biodiversity conservation, carbon sequestration, blue carbon credits, and all of these solutions integrate fair distribution of value, but also have the governance and decision-making power that is based locally. I can give you an example. A couple of weeks ago, I was at a conference. It was GITEX Africa. It was the first GITEX actually organized in Africa in Marrakesh. I met some incredible startups and organizations that had very simple but adapted solutions for sustainability that integrated key local habits and culture, which was inspiring to see because the adoption level is going to be so much higher and the impact is going to be so much higher. And I believe that's what we're all about. We're all about enabling economies, whether we want to enable them on a policy level like Europe, or we want to enable them from the bottom up, let's say in Africa, for these adapted solutions.
There is a belts and braces mantra in IT and business, which is you can't improve what you don't measure. And ESG reporting has been gaining a lot of attention recently, especially in relation to long-term sustainability of industries in the Web3 sector, for example. So can you expand on why accurate and auditable ESG reporting is so crucial? And also maybe expand on how the Hedera network helps ensure that too.
Yeah, I definitely can. So ESG reporting has been gaining a lot of attention, specifically in Europe, as being the front runner actually for the regulations, following directives like the Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive. And this is very important because it forces disclosure and it allows for mitigation of greenwashing. So in the last years, as the sustainability movement has picked up from a consumer perspective, specifically, a lot of cases came to light where claims were made and that painted these organizations as being more sustainable than they actually were. So this is from the one side where there is a consumer perspective, which makes ESG reporting pushes it forward. But secondly, ESG reporting is also important because it allows enterprises to understand the climate risks that they are exposed to. And this also means the increase of the cost of capital. So by decreasing those risks, you can only do that by having full and honest insight on how you can improve and having insight on what you actually do beyond greenwashing. So within Hedera, we are building an ecosystem that is really focused on addressing these issues, focused on the climate crisis. And a major portion of that is addressing on emissions reporting and overall ESG reporting, so the environmental, the social, and the governance. And one major project on this is actually Othman.io, which is by Avery Dennison, one of our governing council members. They are addressing some of the most critical supply chain use cases. So they are the world's largest digital trigger company. And they are an industry leader in technologies such as RFID, QR codes, and NFC tags. And this complements the innovations in Web3 that we have within the Hedera economy. Where Othman.io innovates is logging not only digital birth certificates and digital product passports on Hedera, but addressing carbon emissions accounting as well. This opens a whole area of new use cases, such as product level carbon neutral claims using open source technologies like The Guardian for both emissions reporting and corresponding offsets, but also understanding a little bit more about the social impact. And of course, at the reporting stage, there is more, as I mentioned, than just emissions accounting. So ESG reporting against voluntary and compliance standards is important. Earlier this year, we announced our first partnership in this area with a company called CorpStage out of Singapore, which is aiming to address key areas of ESG reporting on Hedera, citing carbon emissions and offsets in voluntary and compliance reporting standards. But there is so much more work to be done in this field. And by leveraging the right digital public goods, the right solutions can really come out on top and deliver these kind of solutions against greenwashing and enable the environmental, the social, and the governance improvements.
And I'm curious, if we look back at your past here, your past experience co-founding TrustFactor, has this helped you leverage, or have you leveraged this knowledge to further HBAR Foundation's mission? And has TrustFactors' approach to sustainability in some way mirrored in the HBAR Foundation? Is that a fair comment?
Yes, it definitely is. I think a lot of the previous work that I was doing was mirrored in the work of the HBAR Foundation.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of commonalities in the way of thinking even before we knew each other. So TrustFactors was really built, and TrustFactors is one of the let's say applications that came out. There are many solutions, but it was really built to be the convener for enterprises into creating digital impact identifiers and digital impact identifiers to enable transparency and fairness in reporting. And we saw that there was a lack, let's say, specifically potentially on a policy level, where we wanted to infuse the digital principles, the digital Web3 principles, and how these principles could enable reporting. And in order to successfully make this work, you really needed to convene large enterprises and find agreements or pilots together. And TrustFactors' approach was at a smaller scale, focused on the Netherlands. And I worked with some incredible people in this, but joining Hedera, we really had the ability to convene and build use cases. So the work actually of the HBAR Foundation aligned with the work that I was doing with TrustFactors makes a lot of sense. I mean, the Guardian is a solution that can be really pivoted for that, because what you do eventually is you digitize and open source policies and methodologies and standards, and which is very much based on the work that we do with the IWA, the Interwork Alliance, and the Token Taxonomy Framework. So there's a lot of commonalities in the work and in the work that we did. And I think TrustFactors was definitely a pivoting moment. And I can see the work back in the HBAR Foundation.
And let's look towards the future, where do you see the intersection of blockchain, sustainability and inclusivity heading? And what role do you ultimately see HBAR Foundation playing in this evolving landscape too?
So technology will definitely play a significant role. I mean, more and more. The HBAR Foundation is really committed to enable the necessary digital public goods that enable these climate solutions, benefit sharing solutions, and the trust for this new economic model. So trust is the key component on enabling a just transition, and on a trustless network is key. So we have auditability for climate finance. We can see where financial flows are headed, which is obviously financial transparency. We see the rule sets around the redistribution of value. And Hedera Housegraph technology serves as this trust chain. And the Sustainable Impact Fund at the HBAR Foundation is really here to listen and to provide grants and grow the sustainability economy through the financing of these digital public goods that are able to achieve the outcomes of a just transition that is fair from the global north to the global south, financial transparency and benefit sharing, and make this available for users on a network.
And we started the podcast today talking about the very beginning of your journey, where it's taken you in building that positive change you want to see in the world through technology. And if we take a look back again, I think none of us are able to truly achieve success without a little help along the way. So I'm curious, if you were to look back at your career, is there a particular person that you're grateful towards, maybe helped you get where you are? Maybe they just saw something in you and invested a little time. But who would that person be? And maybe we can give them a little thank you or a shout out today.
It's such a great question, and it's such a difficult question to answer. So I think that none of us achieve success alone. And I've had so much luck in my life. I worked among so many aspiring people and met people along the way. I believe every company that I worked at, and I was surrounded by individuals They were inspiring, provided me with time and patience. I learned so many lessons in terms of technology, strategy, sustainability. So it's very hard to pinpoint one person within that. I just think that every single organization, honestly, I cannot think it has just been a great pivot. And additionally, I also have a great supportive family. I mean, my brother, mother, and father have supported me along this way, great friends, and there's so many people. But at this moment, I think what I'm most grateful for is that I have a great team around me at the HBAR Foundation. We work so closely together and we're very strongly aligned. And in specific, Wes Geisenberg, which is the VP of the Sustainable Impact Fund, and we have Jonathan Rakoff, which is our global head of policy. We work very closely together, and it's such a great team to have. And across the ecosystem, I worked closely together with Swirls Labs and the Hashgraph Association and Hedera, which all of them are just great professionals and subject matter experts, but mostly just really, great human beings. And I feel very lucky to be part of this community.
Fantastic. I love chatting with you today. We have covered a huge amount of information in a short amount of time. And anybody that's interested in joining your passionate community, finding out more information, contacting your team, all that great stuff, what's the best starting point to find out more about HBAR Foundation's mission?
Yes, of course. So we have obviously the HBAR Foundation website. You can find that online. We have a lot of publications on our investment thesis where we really looked at and dissected our investment thesis, and you can find that all online. You can find us on Twitter at HBAR Foundation, or on LinkedIn, which is my name, Hania Othman, or connect with my colleagues, Wes Geisenberg or Jonathan Rakoff within the foundation.
Well, as we said there a few moments ago, I love chatting with you today, especially how the HBAR Foundation is helping to drive adoption of the Hedera network. And you spent much of your career enabling companies to design and build solutions that enable the next-gen economy. And it's just great work that you're doing here. As I said a few moments ago, technology works best when it brings people together. So I can't thank you enough for coming on here and shedding light on why we need greater security, transparency, sustainability, efficiency. It's greater than ever, especially with how quickly the world is changing. But there is so much to be positive about, so much to the role of technology building positive change in the industry. So thank you so much for talking about all that. And of course, inclusivity. We could talk for another hour on this, but thanks for sharing your story today.
Thank you so much, Neil. It was such a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. And I'm very excited about the work that we're doing. Thanks.
A huge thank you to Hania for coming on here today. It's clear from our discussion that the need for security, transparency and efficiency in the digital world has never been more paramount, let's be honest. And we'll also learn how the HBAR Foundation is harnessing the power of the Hedera network to foster sustainability and inclusivity. And I, for one, enjoyed exploring the profound implications of accurate ESG reporting, because we've all seen lots of stories around greenwashing. Accurate ESG reporting is more important than ever, and especially how emerging technologies like blockchain can provide solutions to the sustainability crisis and make the climate finance auditable. And I think we also saw the power of collaboration and locally adapted solutions through Hania's examples that she shared, which again highlighted the importance of inclusivity in driving sustainable practices across many different regions, including Europe and Africa. So a personal thank you to Hania for her dedication to enabling digital public goods for climate solutions. I think her insights will certainly inspire many people listening today, and maybe for all of us to consider how all of us can contribute to a more sustainable and inclusive digital world. You may say I'm a dreamer, but hey, I'm not the only one. So thank you for joining me today. I'll be back again tomorrow with another guest where we'll discuss the intersection of technology on our lives and in our work and everything in between. So until then, keep exploring, keep learning, and remember, the future's in our hands. But thank you for listening as always, and until next time, don't be a stranger.